Welcome to Goddess Behavior, the podcast where ancient myths meets modern main character energy.
We're your hosts, Steph and Laura.
No textbooks, just great stories, hot takes, and some unhinged ancient audacity.
So pour a drink, fix your crown, and step into your mythic era.
This is Goddess Behavior. All right. So to Germany we go. So
into the Black Forest.
Yes, we go from going from superstition. It just felt like the Black Forest has so much that's related to that it felt like the obvious choice, right? And just that the stories are well known in one way and then not another. It's like the originals are not.
So it's the birthplace of fairy tales. And again, fairy tales are an extension of folklore, like with our superstitions.
Yeah.
And the fairy tales were not always super magical and cutesy.
And no, not at all. Yeah.
Like what we think about from Disney's versions.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure everyone knows by now, right? That Disney
has used that.
Used, the Grimm brothers and Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah. Inspiration.
Inspo.
And so, if you think about it this way, then you're saying, okay, folklore stories. Oh, all right. We're going into survival, techniques and cautionary tales, stuff that keeps you from things that you shouldn't be getting involved in, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially the same things we've discussed previously.
Yeah.
Different location.
Yeah.
And because of the different location, we get different stories.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's cool.
Yeah, we go into a liminal space again, right? This Black Forest. So like we were talking about yesterday, a lot of superstitions around it, a lot of danger, a lot of fear that gets instilled because of that, right?
The Black Forest itself it's called that for a reason.
Yeah.
It's very, very dense and therefore very dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just as like a picture here.
So it becomes like a psychological landscape just as much as a physical one.
Yeah.
And can play tricks on you and,
Yeah. I mean, I think when you can't see things clearly, it leaves your mind
vulnerable.
Yes.
Right?
Where you are trying to fill in the pieces of what's happening.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Could be good, could be bad.
Yeah. So I think as we've evolved, we've become less connected to that idea of like what the forest represents because we have our own boundaries put up. So the Black Forest isn't just a place on the map, right? It's a storytelling environment. Therefore, it becomes psychological as much as it is physical. And it helps shape fears, warnings, and symbols that eventually become these fairy tales. And historically, forests are genuinely dangerous. So it informs these stories, right? It becomes the key factors that go into why they're being told and what they're being told about. Yeah. And again, because we are disconnected from them a little bit, it feels fairy tale-y, right? It feels more whimsical and mysterious in a fun way instead of in a dangerous way like their original intention, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're just removed from, because we do have sort of technology now, right? So we feel like we don't have to be as afraid.
Yeah. Even though
situations.
Although it's mysterious to us still if I get put into the middle of the woods without any technology, then it becomes scary all of a sudden, right?
Totally.
So it's interesting that we fantasize it so much, right? And I think it has partly to do with the stories got changed, right?
I think so.
So, we're not walking through the forest with the birds singing along with us, it's not how
that would be nice.
Yes,
but
that's not reality.
It's not going to work.
Yeah. In reality, you could have the complete opposite, right? It becomes the opposite of safety. It's isolation, it's limited visibility, unpredictable weather, wild animals, starvation, bandits, everything you can possibly think of.
Again, these are really dark, deep, dense woods.
Yeah.
And I would not want to be in them.
Yeah.
And even more so after researching
especially
this episode.
Trying to get home without knowing where you're going, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one thing to have a map or have a phone or a guide.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this alone
Nope.
without anything.
Nope.
No.
Exactly.
And I like being outside. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
It's not that. It's
Well, and like we're saying, you might be familiar with the woods, but this like would amplify any fears that you already have because of it's such a extreme version of this landscape, right?
Yeah.
Thick evergreen coverage could block out the sunlight for like the whole day, right?
Yeah, truly.
So in like a Florida pines here, you always get some kind of sunlight, even in like a dense forest, right?
Yeah.
And there you wouldn't even have that. You have a dense canopy like in a rainforest or, but we're talking evergreen trees. So even, Christmas trees, if you will. It just makes the whole world feel darker and spookier than it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I've been to the Black Forest, and we had a guide. So again,
you're like,
fine. We were in a group. It's fine. But it really is just, it's dense and dark. And if a trail isn't cut through, I don't know what your plan is.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can imagine how it would have been back a long time ago when, these ancient roads were through this dark, dense forest, and it's probably this tiny little dirt road, right? And you're trying to navigate that, especially in like wintertime when it's really dark. You only have really limited visibility.
I mean, this is Southwest Germany. And so even if you're, there are accounts even in like World War II, World War I of like, this was a struggle. Like the Black Forest could be used to hide a lot of things.
Yeah.
A
lot
of good,
lot of
spooky things. So
it creates this isolation, right? Yeah. And so again, because it's so dense, the light disappears at night almost completely.
Yeah,
so
the moon wouldn't matter. You wouldn't see it.
It wouldn't, right? Yeah, exactly. So the forest after dark becomes even more.
I say daunting.
Daunting. It becomes even more difficult to navigate.
I wouldn't want to.
Nope.
Anyways,
no, thank you.
Which is part of why the sun and moon become so important in folklore. The sun represented orientation, safety, civilization. What can be seen can be known, right? But moonlight belonged to uncertainty, to transformation, to the feeling that something could exist just beyond what you could fully see. So in folklore, the rules often change after sunset.
Yeah.
Wolves emerge, spirits appear, magic activates, because for ancient people, night genuinely altered survival.
Sure.
So it's like we were talking about.
That's why you set camp up, at nighttime. Yeah.
Night amplifies
danger.
Yeah. I mean,
in every form, and not being able to see where you're going, not knowing what's ahead, not being able to scout out your surroundings. It's immediately more difficult.
Problematic. Yeah.
And maybe that's why they're so, like, the forest becomes so symbolic, right? Of this
for all these stories.
And the backdrop for all of them, because it creates already this sense of uncertainty, right? Not being in control. You can enter the woods and lose your direction, your safety, your status, your community. It all, disappears, even maybe your identity.
I mean, like, I think that not being able to see, maybe if anyone hasn't experienced that, right, it can be disorienting. Like if you are not necessarily lost in the woods, but like you don't
know
really have a way to figure out where to go.
It's a
can
problem.
really make you lose your mind. You're disoriented.
So I guess that's why maybe these fairy tales begin with somebody going off the common path, right? And into the unknown. It's more than just a road. It's the structure, right? You're leaving what's known, aka the not modern world, the known world, right? And going into the unknown. Society, rules, protection all get left behind when you step off this path, right?
And I think a lot of times that, like today, that's like romanticized. Like I immediately go into
like
the
Wanderlust.
unknown.
Exactly.
From Frozen. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that's portrayed as being like super brave.
Yes.
Or like
which it is in its own way.
But
also not the smartest.
Not always the smartest.
So, or it gives the impression that it's not thought out.
Yeah.
It might be. You might be going in knowing a lot of things, right? But you also are clearly not ignoring, but intentionally putting off to the side things that you know are possible.
More negative thoughts,
right,
that come along
exactly.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did we get to fairy tales then? Right.
I think again, if we're creating a lens here, is it's folklore then fairy tales.
Right.
So like with superstitions, these fairy tales are just
it's an extension of folklore.
Yeah.
So they've taken folklore stories and adapted them to create something
like
that's more digestible, essentially. And I think that's one of the most common misconceptions about fairy tales is that they just were what they were to begin with. They didn't come from anywhere else, right? They're just
they're based on things.
Yes. Well,
yeah.
And I think most people probably figured that they have altered over time, but
they have.
But not maybe from the origins that they have.
Yeah.
If you think about Disney, right? Their original, or most people grew up in our age group watching all those movies, right?
Yeah.
So in our minds, before we, could read or, move on from it, that's what we assumed is the story that came from Germany, right? It's not any different. However, the more you look into it, it becomes like, oh, okay, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I think I knew pieces of it. My parents waited till I was older to tell me the real stories, like Grimm's brothers version of these things. But yeah, I loved Snow White. I was the little girl running around in her Snow White dress every day. I wore it to church, wore it everywhere. Yeah.
Interesting. That spoke to you so much.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was a Beauty and the Beast girl, which is
I liked
a slightly
others.
Different, but also kind of in the woods too.
She runs off into the woods and finds wolves.
A topic for a different day, but similar vibes, right? Yeah. So it's interesting how that's where your mind goes, right?
But I mean, I think the point here is that like folklore is alive and it's like so ever changing, right? In that way. So you see these stories shift as society
definitely.
Shift.
Yeah, I mean, they change depending on what town you're in. It can be that simple, right? So
coastal, mountain, forest.
Exactly.
Like, again, geography affects all of these things too.
Yeah. And they weren't for entertainment necessarily. They were entertaining, but that wasn't the purpose of them. They were to help with survival. Yeah. I mean, as we've talked about before, folklore carries warnings inside its narrative. They prepare you. They tell you not to trust strangers, don't wander alone, all of these rules that keep communities going.
And I guess to keep a population going,
it's what you got to do.
You would have to protect them in that way. Yeah.
And so they weren't just for kids, right? They're for grown-ups too. Anybody who was maybe a little bit more reckless. And they were told around the campfire in the wintertime to keep people, again, entertained, but also to make sure nobody does anything dumb.
Stories. Yeah. But eventually many of these stories transition from folklore into fairy tales. And that's where figures like the Brothers Grimm come in.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is that Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm weren't originally trying to create whimsical children's literature. Mm-hmm. So they were collectors, linguists.
They were trying to preserve culture.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they just wanted to help preserve these German stories.
Right.
And so they traveled through German regions, gathering these oral stories that had already existed for generations.
Yeah.
And then, wrote them down.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment they get written down, they change.
They shift into something other than folklore, because folklore is an oral tradition, right?
Yeah.
Which it's such an interesting thing, right? So like in superstitions, you don't have that written down, so they don't change form in the way that it does with a fairy tale.
Right. Like superstitions, I'm sure there is now.
Well, it still has this element of ever changing. Like it has that folklore trait of it never dies, quote unquote. Like, whereas if it goes onto the paper, it can be cemented.
Yeah. Like the superstitious rules are not rules in a hard way.
In a hard
they're not
sense,
amendments.
Yeah.
They're not like laws.
Right.
So that's what makes them
where
different.
The fairy tales maybe now have been more cemented in our minds the way that they are because of them being written down. Yeah. And we have one version to go off of instead of many.
Yeah. I mean, you can still find
find more than one. But
the Grimm's brothers versions. Yeah, but they've just been adapted a lot.
Yeah.
So, as with a lot of history now, is you just sort of, I like all of the information. So
do I. I give me all the information and then I can make my decision of which story I prefer or what I like to take from it, or
combination of all.
Yes.
It's how it goes. The Grimm versions themselves evolved between editions.
Sure.
Earlier versions often contained more violence, more social anxiety, more references to starvation, pregnancies, death, and survival realities.
Yeah.
The later editions softened some of those things as the audience increasingly shifted towards children.
Right.
And eventually modern adaptations sanitize them even further, which we see with our Disney movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you start to soften the edges, it becomes less and less. It becomes a nice story, but it's not.
It takes from its original purpose. Yeah.
Right.
Or like the reason why the stories existed to begin with.
Which maybe in our modern time they wouldn't hit as hard. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like because it would be less relatable.
Yes,
it's
I think
probably
so.
Why. Because
you'd be like, why are you telling this crazy story?
We can't relate to that struggle, right?
True.
And that's not our fault.
It's just part of reality.
Societies have evolved so much since maybe those original stories were needed.
No, that's true. But even after all the centuries of editing, that emotional core does survive, like that fear of getting lost and the fear of dangerous strangers or creatures in the woods or being abandoned, right? All of these things still can be relatable. So they think that's why they have lasted as long as they have. And people enjoy them still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bare minimum, several of those life lessons can still apply.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So shall we start with our first story?
Yay, Snow White.
Yes.
So modern audiences usually remember Snow White as a story about a princess and 7 dwarves and her little her little animal worker friends, right? There you
go.
Here.
Yeah.
And and True Love's Kiss.
Yes,
forget
of
that
course.
piece.
Yeah. Wouldn't be a Disney movie without it.
Yeah. But the original fairy tale is much stranger and much more symbolic than the softened versions people know today. So at its core, Snow White is a story about exile and transformation. She loses the structure of the royal court and the safety of what she knows and the identity she had before. And that's important because in fairy tales, forests are often places where transformation happens before rebirth. You enter the woods as one version of yourself, and you leave as another. And the forest itself reflects that transition. It's unpredictable, isolating, the things that we've talked about before. Snow White isn't just physically separated from society. She's symbolically crossing into a liminal space between death and survival. Innocence and maturity, vulnerability and power. So the original tale of this story is actually really dark. Not that it's not dark. I think rewatching these as an adult with like your own children,
you're like,
I now look at this and I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of dark.
Yeah.
The Disney version is a little scary.
So you loved it. I
did,
hated it. I never enjoyed Snow White, to be honest with you.
I can't explain. I don't know why.
You just have a reason. Yeah. And I just remember watching it and being like, I felt like it was heavy. Like, I think I just always felt that
It is.
It is. Yeah. And it's weird because so is other ones. Like, I don't have that reaction with other ones, but this one in particular, I felt that way.
Was more frightening.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, in the original one, the evil queen is her actual mother, not her stepmother.
Yeah.
And her actual mother is trying to kill her.
Nice. Yeah.
Because she wants to be the fairest of them all, right? And the mirror is telling her she's not it's her daughter. And so in the original one, her own mother is trying to kill her.
Nice.
So, she uses a corset and tries to like literally prevent her from breathing.
Good. Yeah.
And
makes me want to wear one even more now.
And then poisons her comb.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she's, chased out, I guess, into the forest by the huntsman. And each of these 3 times, she's saved by dwarves. And the dwarves are never given a name or like,
there's no happy.
Well, in the originals, they're little people.
Oh,
right? They're like dwarves.
Sure.
They're the dwarfs of the forest.
Makes sense.
To save their princess.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's sweet.
It's very like again, it's something we see in other stories too. And I just
I love that.
But the queen is another sort of reoccurring theme that we'll see here, where this envy, and this like her fixation on not wanting to age or being replaced. Sort of, she doesn't want to be put in the crone
box.
And so she's trying, in her mind, she's like trying to fight that.
No, makes sense.
But so later the story does change so that it's not her mother, it becomes a stepmother.
Right. Which I guess it's trying to soften the blow of like somebody that close to you being that violent or
horrible towards you.
It reflects like woman's survival probably at the time, right?
So where
you
so
having
much
to
of it,
your tie again back to our triple goddess, discussion of your value shifts as you age as a woman. And I think this is a story where it's like she's afraid to be not this beautiful maiden anymore and doesn't know how to handle it, essentially.
She doesn't know what to do about it.
And obviously she's got some issues of her own.
Right.
But,
not
so
justifying it.
She's just trying to give context, I guess,
Yeah.
as to why she would even be thinking that. It means you lose your stability as a woman in that time.
Yeah, and especially in like a royal court, right? I think we saw how many wives did Henry VIII have, where your value as not only an individual but as a queen, a wife there, he would just replace you.
Yeah, you're replaceable. Your safety, your stability.
The fear was deep.
Oh yeah, and rightfully so. Oh, and then there's the glass coffin of it all.
Yeah. So this is also a problematic moment for me because the prince in the original one, the prince there is no like initial true love's kiss to save her from like that petrified state. He just takes her coffin.
Okay.
He just wants to bring the coffin back home.
She's
with him.
Just like suspended in this like state of transformation.
I say petrified because I think a lot of people
petrified is a good
Harry
way.
Potter, and and so you can sort of picture that like frozen state. I guess.
It's a great word for it.
But essentially, what ends up happening is the dwarves are carrying her coffin to the prince, following the prince with the coffin of Snow White.
Yeah,
and they end up like bumping her like awake.
Okay,
it's a weird.
Sure.
This is a weird. It's a weird story.
Yeah.
And so she ends up like waking up before
she's supposed to, essentially.
Yeah.
No, and it's an interesting thing too. Like she's put into this coffin and she's not dead. She's not alive. She's
in between.
Again, this liminalness, right?
She's in a lot of those.
But
spaces.
she's in a transformation as a person too. So it's reflecting her mental transformation too, right? Like she's not this princess anymore. She's been in this forest now trying to navigate, and now she's turning into a
amount of hardship,
right? And trying to turn into what she'll be next, right? And I think that's something that modern storytelling often like rushes through this like transformation process. It's not you go in and you become a new person right away. Like it takes this struggle and isolation and separation from what you know in order to become.
Which is why I think that like a lot of kids now don't watch these older princess movies.
Because they don't enjoy it. It's uncomfortable.
There isn't the instant gratification of
she's
our
better now.
current shows and movies that they release now. Like these things take time.
Yeah.
And you got to bear with them for like 30 minutes. It'll be okay.
Yes.
But kids can't do that
No,
anymore.
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was watching something with Bronson. He's like, "This is boring." I'm like, "No, this is the setup of the movie.
Yeah,
like you have to watch it. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to be confused." I mean, he's also
and they're little.
5.
Yeah, so you're like, okay.
Yeah, like the old version of you has to disappear before the new one can pop up, right?
Yeah, and that takes time.
Which is something that you do experience as a person. I think nobody starts off one way and is the same way their entire life. As much as some people are in some ways, you change. It's just part of life.
I would think that in that time period, there wasn't a lot of moving.
True.
Like most of those people were born and raised in their same city
like?
in their same place. Yeah, we wouldn't know about that.
I don't know anything about that. My sister, I'll call her out. My sister always jokes that we grew up in an unstable home. My parents are very happily married. It's not about that. It's more that we were always going somewhere.
You moved a lot. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that would have been a very big concept for that time period.
Definitely.
And going through a transition in that way isn't like what the rest of their
it's more unique
kingdom would experience.
More unique for sure. So the danger of leaving the path. So we're going off the beaten trail. No, so and I think another well-recognized story from this area is Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone knows the softened version of this story, right? Which, to be honest, I think it's one that is...
It's relatively close.
Pretty close. Mm-hmm. They didn't change it as much as some other ones. Yeah, it's not great. But it often gets framed again as listen to your mama and don't go off the path, right?
Yeah.
So the core of Little Red Riding Hood is about vulnerability. When someone who's young and unexperienced and isolated moves through the world without protection. So the mom sends Little Red Riding Hood into the woods to go to her grandmother's house because her grandma's sick, right?
With her basket of goodies.
With her basket of goods. And she goes into the house and the wolf is dressed up like her grandmother and eats her, essentially. Then Huntsman comes and saves her from the wolf and happily ever after, right? Isn't that kind of
Yeah. I mean,
that's essentially the story I think we've grown up with, right?
Yeah.
So in many earlier versions of the tale, the wolf isn't just like a literal predator, but represents like manipulation or seduction in a like luring you in way.
Yeah.
Predatory people can hide in familiarity.
Yeah.
Which is still a very good lesson to learn as a child. So it's not, I can see why it's stuck in a children's capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I think
stranger danger.
Maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. I think children are born inherently good.
I think so.
And they want to see the good in everybody
and
every creature. And so someone has to teach them, hey, maybe we don't trust everyone. Everything, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to have to do that, but we definitely still live in a world maybe
even worse in some ways.
Where they shouldn't trust.
Yeah. I think their access to more people that could be in that realm is definitely still a thing. Yeah, which is why this is often interpreted as one of the earliest folklore warnings about predatory men, right? The danger isn't the brute force. It's like the conversation, the luring you in, and the attention, the trust building. So sinister, right?
She doesn't realize until she's too close.
Yeah.
Then she's eaten.
And then
then that's exactly. You're too close to the wolf.
Yeah, like the wolf gains access to her by luring her, like talking to her and getting her to come inside, distracting her, convincing her to leave the path. The path matters. It's the structure. Don't leave the road. Like that's
the rules are in place for a reason.
Right. and it connects you to what you know, your village. You follow the path back home if you are in danger instead of going off and going somewhere you don't know, right? Especially as a child.
Yes, exactly.
And the moment she wanders off, she goes right into the uncertainty, which is what the wolf is wanting her to do and waiting for her to do.
The wolf is banking that she'll do that. In the original versions, I don't think she's not rescued. She's eaten.
She's eaten, and that's it. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
You learn really quickly, oh, she got a little too close.
Yes.
And she was eaten.
Yep. That was the story goes that's it. Don't go off the path. You will be eaten.
And die. I mean,
yes. Yeah, so it might come off like harsh in our modern lens, but again, it's a valid lesson to learn.
I think it's a serious one to learn because especially, I mean, what lives in the Black Forest? Wolves. And a lot of them. And they aren't just like it sounds weird to say. They're not regular wolves. They're big wolves. Like
they are.
They are like what you should think of when you think of like an original wolf. They're big.
Yeah, dire wolf situation.
Yes, right. Yes, that's I think that hopefully gives a good visual.
Yes,
there. We can share a photo.
Yes,
but,
yeah. No, I mean,
Black Forest wolves were serious, and it actually really was a problem for a lot of communities, the surrounding communities of the Black Forest, where children, people were getting eaten by these wolves.
Yeah, again, it's an explanation for why people disappeared.
Yeah,
and why, and maybe in an unknown way of like where the hell did they go? Like they just disappeared.
Yeah.
Wow. No trace left behind, right? It's kind of this idea of like, how do you recognize the danger when it's put into disguised? Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the lesson that's being taught there.
Yeah, and I think again maybe the unknown of a wolf, or like the unknown of
what they're capable of.
The path, right? Like curiosity could get. There's so many times, especially with children, where curiosity could get the better of you.
For sure. This is definitely that
This
case.
story is serving its purpose.
Yeah, for sure. And another one where you're following somebody you shouldn't is Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
And this story originally is not about a house made of candy.
Oh. Yeah, no, I know. It's, when you think about the forest as hunger.
Yes.
It's not really the story about sweets and witches and
it becomes about famine, about how you live in a place where
maybe there's scarcity.
Food needs to be a very high priority on your list of importance.
Yeah. And the links that people will go to sort of fix that problem became an issue, right? I mean,
like historically in Europe, there's many famine, right? They had crop failures, harsh winter, disease, war, and anything you can think of that would just put entire communities at risk.
Yeah, it was devastating.
And it becomes ingrained in these stories, right? Where people would, have to abandon their kids because they didn't have any way to feed them, and they could barely feed themselves, which is so sad. I can't even imagine. Yeah, that's the horror behind this story, is that there were parents that had to do that, and that story is not an uncommon one at that time.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, think of Oliver Twist.
Yes.
I mean, again, different location, but similar concept is that the children were sort of wandering the streets begging.
Well, it's like this orphancy, right? Like I think we see that a lot in older stories, this idea of orphans. Like obviously they're still orphans now, but it's not portrayed the same way, right? You have a different system here.
In the streets.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
The more modern we've gotten, the more we've tried to hide that. Like I think that is absolutely still a thing.
Yeah.
But we don't label it the same. It's not an orphanage. It's a foster home,
Yeah,
and
foster care,
and
foster group, but, like, it sounds like they're definitely not always the best places
no,
to be.
no, exactly. It's not a great
It's
situation.
something that most people are often removed from, including myself.
Yeah, me
I'm
too. I
calling
don't
myself out here.
unfortunately
I'm
know.
removed from
Yeah,
that.
I'm lucky I don't know that situation.
Yeah.
I feel for those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that becomes something that is very culturally understood as like a common theme of kids being abandoned because they just can't feed them.
And so
It's not great.
the parents abandoning their children in the woods, really, it wasn't as shocking as it comes about
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
Um,
This story's reflecting this anxiety of what happens when the family structure gets destroyed from this situation, right?
yeah.
So in the story that we know, the kids are walking through the forest and they come across a house made of candy, which lures them inside to this witch who ends up trying to eat them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and then they escape the house, and that's the end of that, essentially, right?
Yeah.
They again this idea of don't trust strangers, right? But as we've just talked about, if you take the context into account, there's no way that it's not talking about kids who were actually left in the woods and had to fend for
And were
themselves.
starving. Maybe
Yes.
they had to, they
Maybe
were
they were
seeking,
hallucinating the house.
maybe. And they needed shelter, they needed food. Maybe.
Yeah. So they're, maybe this original story goes to them wandering into a stranger's house who is also hungry and is like, well, you are not going to be missed. So, and that's the end of that,
Yeah.
I
It
think
is a darker ending in the other one.
for sure.
But
But it's
that's
again,
again,
it's the consequence. If you going and talking to, you're trusting in strangers that you don't know,
yeah.
um, your consequences may not come out the way that you hope. Um, in their case, they didn't have a choice, so I feel bad for
Yeah,
them. But
but they're used as a lesson. I mean,
yes,
again, I don't know that we have these are stories.
yes,
I
there's
think
no a
I
specific
have to
account
separate it
here.
in my mind,
Yes,
right? That like,
yes,
but could that have been a reality for
yeah,
children? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's survival horror wrapped in fairy tale imagery.
yeah,
And
definitely.
once you start looking at the story in that way, the candy house stops feeling whimsical
Mm,
and is really just terrifying. I
yeah,
mean, I think
definitely.
the original story is sad, and
Yeah,
we don't have a lot of weight. There's no way to coat that.
no,
That
not at all.
um
It's no sugarcoating it.
literally.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these are that way. We're not sugarcoating. We're taking the sugarcoating off, if you will,
Yeah.
uh, to show what the real meaning of the stories are. A lesser known story that we came across is the Goose Girl,
Mm.
and this kind of has to do with when women lose their voice, right? So again, this is a place where you really have to fight for your survival. And this story shows how even someone born into a good place, in society can disappear essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So the story follows a princess traveling from another kingdom for an arranged marriage. But on her journey, her maid forces her into submission, steals her royal identity, takes her clothes, her place, her status, and the real princess ends up working as a goose girl while the imposter lives as royalty. So she's essentially just stripped of all of her identity that she's ever grown up with, similar to Snow White.
Yeah.
And has to live this way, right? Yeah, so once you leave your home or the things that are known, you're
Yeah.
not safe. And that's
Again, it's entering into an unknown space
yeah.
and coming out altered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um yeah, so like many transformation stories, they begins on the road between kingdoms and
Through a forest.
yes, through a forest between versions of self, because folklore understood something ancient roads made very real. Once you left civilization, your social protections are weakened. Travel meant vulnerability, especially for women. And what's fascinating about the Goose Girl is that the princess loses power almost immediately after losing her voice.
Yeah, I think when your voice stops mattering,
Yep,
that's
not
pretty
great.
bad. Yep.
She's threatened into silence, unable to publicly claim who she is, which turns the story into something much bigger than mistaken identity. The story becomes about what happens when someone is separated from their name, their social role, their ability to speak in the structure that has protected them. Even the famous talking horse reflects this theme, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if she were to speak up, she won't be believed because
No.
she's just a goose girl.
Right. And
What
it's,
does
oh,
your
she's making
opinion
up
matter?
stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Um, and the horse is the only one that witnesses the truth. And when the false princess has the horse killed to be silenced, the story becomes obsessed with suppressed truth and hidden identity. It becomes like a whole separate thing. So in folklore, everything always comes back around again, right? The truth comes out.
mm,
Um, and in the classic fairy tale structure, she like slowly gains this voice and recognition back.
yeah.
And like so many Black Forest era fairy tales, the story uses the wilderness, travel, and displacement as the setting for transformation. The road changes you, the forest strips identity down, and survival depends on whether you can reclaim yourself afterwards. So she, in a fairy tale version, she's able to do that, but the folklore tale, she
This
kind of has to live with the consequences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she really has to fight her way back.
Mm-hmm.
Our next story is a lesser known Grimm fairy tale called Star Money or The Star Tailors. But honestly, it may be one of the clearest examples of how closely fairy tales were tied to this poverty,
Yeah.
survival, and hope during hardship. Because unlike modern fantasy stories built around chosen ones or grand adventures, this story begins with complete loss.
Mm.
A young orphan girl has nothing: no family, no home, no food, no protection. And as she travels through the world, people ask her for help. Interesting.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Anyway, someone is cold, so she gives away her clothes. Someone is hungry, so she gives away her bread. Piece by piece, she gives away everything she has until she is standing alone in the dark forest with nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I know.
And that's
Makes me
sweet because
sad.
she's a child.
Yeah.
Which already tells you something important about old fairy tales. They understood scarcity intimately.
Mm-hmm.
This was, again, it's such a
Famine,
reality for them.
isolation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These stories came from societies where
Yeah.
hunger, exposure, and survival were everyday realities for many people. And in folklore, generosity during scarcity becomes almost sacred because it costs something real.
Right.
And then comes the magical moment. As the girl stands beneath the night sky, stars begin falling from heaven as silver coins. Not treasure discovered in a castle, not wealth inherited through status, but abundance arriving cosmically, almost like the universe itself responding to compassion.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is how connected this imagery is to the night. The
Yeah.
story only reaches transformation once the girl is stripped of everything familiar.
Yeah. And like again, the night can be so like scary and demonized in a
Yeah.
way that it's nice that it has like the night's a good thing for her in this
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, I think we saw, at least with Nyx, I'm going to continue to associate the night with that sense of awe.
Mm-hmm.
It's unavoidable and
Transformative, but
transformative.
also like
Yeah. It's
awe-inspiring.
on its own. I don't think it's meant to be this big, feared
No, not at all.
thing.
It just
Yeah.
can create
When you combine
scenarios.
it with a dark forest, when you combine it with
Exactly.
unknown environments,
Yeah.
it's
Well, and
hard.
like the
Yeah.
light needs, it's about balance, right? So,
Yeah, she enters a liminal space between survival and despair. Alone beneath stars, outside civilization, outside ordinary systems of power, which is where fairy tales often place these grand gestures, these
a miracle.
miracles. And unlike many Black Forest fairy tales driven by fear, Star Money feels almost like the inverse, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the wilderness exposing human cruelty, darkness becomes the setting for unexpected grace.
Yeah, that's exactly, I just was thinking it's like so opposite from the other stories, right? Where it becomes like, oh no, it's dark, it's scary.
She
Like,
didn't choose to wander off a path, but she chose to be kind.
right.
And then her kindness was
Rewarded. Yeah.
rewarded.
Um,
It's again sort of
yeah.
that karma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exact luck coming back to you.
The fantasy of miraculous abundance only exists because scarcity was so deeply understood. They really, did not.
Yeah, like the stars raining silver sounds very like whimsical and but it represented like something more emotional, that the hope that kindness in a still mattered in a world where the survival was so important and necessary. Like, it was
And where
fought
it was
for.
hard to survive.
It was fought
I
for, which I think is why that part of like a fairy tale endures. It's this, keeping uh hope alive
yeah.
in a desperate time.
Yeah. It's not as dark as some of our other ones we've talked about,
Yeah.
but I think it's still very important.
Yeah.
That despite those hardships, I think it's still important that you remember your humanity.
Yes, exactly. Otherwise you become part of that darkness, or it takes over you, right?
Yeah. In liminal spaces, it can go either way.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah.
So if we are talking about the darkness, we have to go to the moon.
Their source of light in the darkness.
Right. So
Usually.
this one of the strangest Grimm's fairy tales is actually called The Moon. And unlike the softer moon imagery we tend to associate with modern fantasy, dreamy moonlight, romance, intuition, the story treats the moon as something much older and much stranger. The tale begins in a world without moonlight. The night is completely dark, and people live in fear because once the sun disappears, so does all visibility. Roads become dangerous, travel uncertain. The world itself is unstable after dark, which is something that modern life kind of forgets because we really don't experience that the same way.
Yeah.
And especially in a place where, like the dark forest, the night changes everything, and it's a genuine survival threat. Um, Ancient roads become difficult to navigate, predators are hard to see, and people become incredibly lost. It happens very quickly. Once the sun disappears, the psychology changes.
Yeah.
When travelers discover the moon and bring it to their people, it feels less like finding an object and more like reclaiming the orientation itself.
The Brothers Grimm collected a story so strange it almost feels like a joke. 4 men from a moonless land steal a glowing globe hanging in a neighboring village's oak tree to cart it home and charge a weekly toll to maintain it. But underneath the absurdity is something genuinely mythologically rich.
Okay, so they brought it back to the village. Under the light, the villagers rejoiced, and the elves and the dwarves came out to play from the forest, right? Because they've been in the dark. So as these 4 travelers grew old, they each were buried with a quarter of the moon. And essentially, this moon wanes all the way down to nothing, right?
This is the origin story for why the moon lives in the sky. What's fascinating is what it reveals about how folklore processes the sacred. Because what we see usually is the moon is a goddess. The moon is Hecate, Selene, ancient and sovereign.
Yeah.
But here she's municipal property.
No, that's true. Yeah.
And so brought by the 4 men, maintained like a street lamp.
Yeah.
It paints an interesting picture.
It's a different way,
right? Because they're not trying. I don't think that they have malintent, but I think that,
and it makes it more community driven. Like
they needed light.
Yes.
And in a such a dark environment, light was a I don't want to say like hot commodity.
No,
but like,
sure.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking in my head. And then the consequences of mishandling her are actually apocalyptic.
Right.
So when each of these men pass, they're buried with a piece of the moon.
Right.
And
so the 4 quarters, essentially.
Yeah. So when the last quarter, the last
Yes.
piece is
Yep.
buried and they're all in the ground, the dead wake, chaos erupts, and it literally takes. So again, this is a Christianized.
This is the Grimm version, but so it's again a later version of a folklore tale.
Yeah. So it has Saint Peter himself riding down from heaven,
right,
to restore order to sort of the unworldly chaos that was happening down on earth.
And if you put it back in time a little bit, right? So it's probably pulled from multiple different folklore sources, right?
Myths.
So we would imagine that it's mythology based a little bit with maybe a deity. We are not sure which one, so we're not going to name one, but a deity that would come and rescue them in that way.
Germanic, maybe like a version of Thor or a version of
Heimdall or Tyr or someone who would be representing this light force, kind of like a Saint Peter in the Christian
coming and bringing the moon back up into the sky, right?
Restoring order.
Restoring the order in a time of chaos.
Yeah.
And that is actually a lot more mythology feeling.
Yes.
So I think that's why this story is a different one here.
Well, it goes mythology to folklore into fairy tale. Like it's all of this progression and blending of the story together that it can even at this point be difficult to figure out what the original intent is, right?
Yeah. I mean, the moon's light is so fundamental to cosmic order that even, removing it from the dead is enough to resurrect them.
Yeah.
I think that this story just shows the importance of light.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, light doesn't. It also shows that light's not always safety, right?
Yeah.
So like they bring this, they bring something that they think is helpful, and it is, but it's also not all good.
It
like
can call to other things also.
To other problems, right? The moon illuminates things that humans might not always see if it wasn't there, right? So it's different than sunlight. The sun is clarity, order, civilization, where moonlight becomes, again, this transformative of something that you might not normally be able to see. It exists outside of something that you should understand, right?
Which is hard. I mean, it's hard for me to conceptualize things I can't see.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's something that most people struggle with.
It's funny how you get this repetitive concept too of midnight is like the cutoff time, right? And you have this reoccurring enchantment transformations happening all at nighttime, right? They all do. And it's like this magic activation. It's not just like the moon has this other power than the sun. Like it's just a completely different force. Yeah, so while we might associate it with mystery and the sun with clarity, like the moon changes like the feeling of the earth, not just the actual appearance.
Yeah.
So maybe the sun being more
lens.
surface level and the moon being more like emotionally depth, right? Which is how we think of it today. So
yeah, I think if you look at the sun as maybe a more masculine energy, and the moon as a more feminine energy, it can sort of help portray those lenses in that way.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I think these fairy tales survived because humans changed the packaging, but kept the fear, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because fear is what teaches the lesson.
Yeah.
And, for good or for bad, I think in a world that was full of so much uncertainty and unknown, they needed that fear because it kept people alive.
Yeah, definitely. Because fairy tales maybe weren't really about the magic first, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about, like you said, all these experiences of being overwhelmed or unpredictable or terrifying, and turning symbols people could, like turning it into something that people could understand.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they feel so universal. Fairy tales have become this lens that people can look through that everyone can relate to, whereas originally it came from such a specific area that maybe someone from the other side of the world would think it's a cool story, but wouldn't relate to it in the same way.
Yeah.
So the fairy tales operate through a archetype instead of specifics, where folklore was more specific. So it almost goes back the other direction, right? If you think mythology being this overarching themes, right? Folklore more localized. fairy tales take folklore and make it more like mythology, more accessible to a wider audience.
More like a rule.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Like a established rule versus a
suggestion.
yes, suggestion. Exactly.
Yeah.
More firm, right? So again, like how we portrayed.
They were very serious about those. Yeah.
Yeah, the forest is not just a forest, it's uncertainty. The wolf is not just a wolf, it's danger hidden behind something familiar. The journey through the woods becomes the experience of transformation itself. It's all representations of these fears, not just the actual story itself, right?
Yeah. I mean, we continuously see that transformation happening in these liminal spaces, forests, roads, castles under enchantment, wilderness after dark.
Yeah.
Folklore understood something modern culture often struggles with. Growth is rarely clean. It's confusing, disorienting, lonely, sometimes frightening. And that's why these stories lasted. Because even after centuries of editing, commercialization, and sanitization, the emotional structure still works. Humans still recognize fear inside metaphor. We still crave stories that make suffering feel survivable.
Right.
Stories that suggest there's meaning on the other side of uncertainty. Fairy tales aren't escapism, they're memory. So it's
the memory of these struggles becoming something that everyone can understand.
Yeah, it's again with this sort of that cultural memory matters. It's something
totally.
that, the more you tell the story.
And the memory of transformation, like evolving throughout your life. Like I said, I think everybody at some point changes.
And how that's okay.
And how that's okay and a normal part of life. And so they're passing these stories down in order to help people explain their way through these things. And I think that's part of why they're still important, right? We love this cozy, fun, whimsical version of these fairy tales, but the important part has stayed the same, right? It hasn't really changed. Even in a Snow White, from Disney version, the whole point is like the woods is not a safe place. You got to go find shelter,
I mean, don't take food from a stranger.
Right.
Don't open the door
Don't eat a
for
poison apple.
Like,
I think it's really interesting too how that was their first motion picture.
Yeah.
Snow White's was the first Disney motion picture, and it's also one of the most dark.
Yeah.
I guess at the time, this is in like the 30s, I think. The audience was different, maybe. I don't know. They were a little harder.
I think, they had come out of a depression.
Exactly.
So, I mean, in a time where you might have wanted to take food from a stranger, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah. True.
I think that there are lots of things that unfortunately still applied to our world at that point.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. No, I just was thinking about that, how we've come so far in the sense of what our current movies are.
Yep. Like Elsa.
Yes. Well, she's still going into the unknown. Yeah, modern life can feel often emotionally fragmented. Things are hyper digitalized or over explained or constantly shifting, and people are surrounded by information and disconnected from meaning. Fairy tales offer the opposite, symbolic clarity. Everything means something. The forest means something. The path means something. The wolf means something. Fairy tales simplify emotional chaos into symbolic language humans instinctively understand. They turn abstract fears into narrative structures, getting lost, finding your way back, surviving the wilderness, becoming something new. And honestly, that is why fantasy and folklore-based storytelling continues to resonate so strongly now. We all still love it. So there's a reason. And I think that's it. It's that simple.
I think, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to tell stories in that way. There's a reason why all of us with our fantasy books.
Yeah, we love it.
First of all,
adventure.
It's something that feels very familiar because we had these stories as children.
Yeah.
And so now as adults, it makes sense that maybe our comfort place
is to go back to the woods.
In our fantasy books. Like
definitely.
I don't know. I think for me, I love the reels of them showing the Beast, like from Beauty and the Beast, and then showing, one of our bad boys. And like, this is how we got here.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
This is our love
For sure.
love of morally gray men.
Yes, 1,000%. Oh, there's definitely a Disney princess to fantasy girl pipeline. No question.
I mean, you see it. It makes sense.
Yeah. And I think we just love an adventure. And learning along the way. It's a life journey.
And
it's not just...
It can be transformative in itself. I think if anyone has read Throne of Glass, like, you don't finish those books and feel the same way.
No.
Right? Don't. I don't know. I guess you could say like a mental transformation that happens there too, like emotional.
Yeah. Well, again, you're going through life and things, these are obviously big, transformative, world-altering themes, but it's still relatable because everyone goes through some kind of journey throughout their life, and it can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be many different things, but everybody goes through something at some point, and so we all love to hear about someone else's journey, right?
Yeah, it makes you feel sort of less alone in your own journey.
Yeah.
I think that's like
it's the human experience.
A big piece of that is like the communal human experience there.
Exactly.
That these stories, I don't know, that's what they're really good about.
I mean, and we see it come up quite a lot in pop culture, I think. It's like it's over and over again.
Like so many shows and...
Totally. I mean, Into the Woods is like the first one that I thought of. They take the classic fairy tale characters and they ask what happens after the wishes come true, right?
Yeah.
The woods become like a center point in the story, and every character enters the forest carrying a desire, and the forest strips away uncertainty and forces that transformation. So it's a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. They've just become like a testing ground for this transformation, which is super cool.
I mean, you got to talk about Shrek. He literally is an ogre in the woods.
I love it. It's so good. I feel like that is an episode in itself. We could easily talk about Shrek and all the different things going on.
And I mean, throughout the Shrek movies, you sort of see maybe attempts at deconstructing the fairy tale itself. And
well, they've like created a whole separate story as it is, but they still keep these common themes or the common characters. Like you see all these people that you recognize, or like the three blind mice and stuff like that.
You see a lot of our regular fairy tale friends pop up.
Yeah, so even even though the story's not the same, you still have
it's satirical.
Yes.
And even as adults, it's hilarious. It's so good. It's so that sort of cultural memory of the forest. And it's tales.
Yeah,
I guess.
Exactly. And Once Upon a Time, I don't know if you guys remember this show.
I haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah, I haven't either, and I would love to do a rewatch. Yeah. I think it would be...
It's around Snow White and the Evil Queen. So
yes.
I love
Actually,
it. Yeah.
I think that changed my mind when I watched the show, because it really... because it turns it on its head a little bit, it makes it really fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. But essentially the show builds an entire universe around the idea that fairy tale figures go through this like emotional arc and try to rebuild their world after a curse gets put on them, right? Yeah. And they get transported to the human world, right? And it's just such if you guys are interested in fairy tales, absolutely watch that show if you haven't already.
There's so many, like Pinocchio is in it.
They just like tie together all the different ones. It's super fun.
Together.
Yeah. Also, they do it in a way where you don't expect it. It's not super obvious where but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't watched. But like, it's been out for quite a while. So,
it has, yeah. It's an older show. But I think I watched it in college at first.
Yeah, so. Like the Beast isn't the Beast, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and like,
it's fun. Part of it, I think, is fun to guess who you think
everybody is. Yeah, because at first you're not really given context, so it's you're slowly unraveling this mystery.
And then through their mannerisms and maybe how Henry, one of them, kind of like tells their story a little bit.
Yeah,
and you get to figure out who the people in that world are.
Yeah, it's super fun. So. I do love that show.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so again, it's not about the magic in these stories. It's about the lessons that you learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all are looking for is, to be connected together somehow. And fairy tales do that.
Yeah.
They connect us again to the human experience. So.
Right. And I think, deep down, even if you are not an overly or outgoing person, right? These stories have a really good way of bringing you together
to
share
absolutely.
that experience with others.
Exactly. All right. So we have some questions for you guys. Hopefully you were answering them. But if fairy tales are really stories about survival and transformation, which fairy tale feels the most like your life now?
Oh, yeah.
So obviously it's not going to be perfect to fit, but like I did sit and think about this one myself, and I was like, I don't know. I think it changes throughout your life. Like you could have eras, if you will,
I would say.
I don't know which era I'm in
we
now.
don't
but
really see, I think Ariel is one of the only ones where we see her become a mother.
True.
She has Melody.
Yeah, that's true.
But
oh my God, I forgot about that. Wow. Okay. Yep.
My sister was an Ariel girly.
Yeah.
So for the most part, you don't see these princesses enter a motherhood
like a second
role.
or a secondary.
I think if we were to pick one, off the top of my head, even Fairytale.
Yeah, they don't go that way.
It's hard because it doesn't work that way for us.
Sure.
We would have to apply them in other ways.
Yeah. You'd have to be going through something specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's see what other people come up with. I'd love to know.
Yeah. I mean, do we think that sometimes it's okay to get lost, or that getting lost is a piece of how you then find yourself, to sort of transform and move forward?
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
Yeah. Oh, and what do you think today's fairy tales would be, right? So which ones reflect our
Is there an AI
current
princess?
time?
I don't know.
No, just more like what do you think people will still be telling 50, 100 years from now? It will be interesting.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I don't know.
It's just it's interesting to think about just because these stories are so. These stories on their own are a couple hundred years old. The Grimm brothers versions, not even the
original
folklore. So
versions. Yeah,
it's that would be interesting to think about what modern day stories like a Disney related that will stick, or if they will at all,
and how they might evolve. I mean, I know we saw what I always felt like was interesting is Wall-E's story and how modern it gets with like the robots and the tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Jetsons. Like I'm wondering if
we'll ever get there.
if we'll see that be sort of where they are when they're talking about us, right? Like,
oh yeah, interesting.
Where they're like, oh, they're so primitive, and they just didn't understand.
Sure, they will.
It's not how we feel
point,
now,
right?
but like, maybe the same. They'll say the same things about us that we're saying about these little communities surrounding the Black Forest. It's weird to think about.
And if there are any fairy tales that you guys want us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think
there's a few that our minds go to in this area.
Sleeping Beauty literally lives in the Black Forest.
Yes.
Okay, her castle is beautiful and it's there. There's so much there.
Yes.
There's so much there. The whole episode could have been about her.
Right.
And we can do that. Mm-hmm. She has to be her own episode.
Yeah, I think so. And do we want
Silkskin is a really fun one too, because I know we've talked about these tricky,
tricksters.
Individuals.
Yes.
Yeah, tricky tricksters.
Tricksters.
With Jack and the Wendigo and Loki.
And then you have like Cinderella. Again, we're going outside of the Black Forest here, but more fairy tales.
But
Beauty and the Beast, like we brought up before. And there's a lot that kind of have a lot of overarching themes, so maybe we can try to group them together somehow. We find a way. We always seem to.
It's possible.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, these are fun. There are lots more, so you just have to tell us if there's something you want to hear.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please follow Goddess Behavior and leave a review. It helps other legendary mortals find us.
Questions are always welcome. No oracle required.
Stay bold.
Stay curious.
That's Goddess Behavior.